Excellent. Thank you. All right. So my name is Stephanie Cozine, and a lot of you already know me. You see me around at conferences or you've seen me in some of these meetings before. My son has MPS 1 Hurler syndrome. I have been on the board of directors for 6 years now, and I have been the advocacy chair for the past two, and now I have a new co-chair. So Brooke Thomas is on here as well. She is. Um, I'll let her introduce herself a little bit, but she is now our co-chair. We are restructuring the committee and how we're going to be moving forward with our meetings and strategy. And so we're going to discuss a little bit about that this evening. But thank you all for taking the time out to come and learn and get involved. Brooke, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, yes, my name is Brooke Thomas. I live in coastal Alabama, so you guys are all talking about snow, and I'm just seeing rain, which is less exciting. I have three children with MPS 1 Hurler syndrome. All three were transplanted at the University of Minnesota. Go Gophers. I've had the opportunity to travel to DC and do advocacy at the national level. And then I also work really hard in my state where I currently live in Alabama, pushing state policy for rare disease and disability inclusivity.
All right, thanks, Brooke. And our staff member who is involved with the advocacy committee, who's going to help us lead this, is going to be Sharon King, who is our chief operating officer. If you could introduce yourself, Sharon.
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie. I think probably most everyone on this in this call knows me. I've been at the society now since early June. I came out of industry. I worked at Aldevron for about 6 years, a manufacturer of the biologics for gene and cell therapies and vaccines. Um, but my entry into rare disease was my daughter, Taylor, who was diagnosed just before her 8th birthday with one of the subtypes of Batten disease, CLN1 to be specific, which in many children with the classic presentation, their lifespan is somewhere between 8, 9 years. Taylor lived to be 20. She had a very attenuated form, and she was also in a clinical trial. Do we know if that had some impact on her extended life? We're not sure, but we were certainly happy that we had that chance for her. So I will say that I've been a rare disease advocate since July 24th of 2006. That was the day that she was diagnosed. And that's the day I knew I was going to be an advocate, lifelong rare disease advocate. And here I am, and I'm not going away.
Thank you.
So, yeah, yeah. So, Stephanie, you want me to go ahead and
Yep, go ahead with our
start?
updates
Okay.
and how we're going to be structuring this year, committee meetings and such.
Thank you for that. Okay, I want to thank everyone for joining. Those of you who are new to the call tonight, those of you who were with us on December 19th, you came in right there before the holidays. And I was really appreciative of you joining that night. We had a good group that night, and we have a good group tonight. So I'm such a believer in the importance of advocacy and using our voice. Um, to make a difference. I realized early on that what I was looking for was a therapy for my child, a treatment. I'm as Terry loves to say that we're all about drug to child, drug to child. I'm a firm believer in that. What we want is a treatment for our children. What we need is the coordination of care, that continuum of care that the National MPS Society is so good at providing, thanks to Leslie and the Family Support Group and Pathways. I but I'm driven by bringing better treatments to children, treatments to those that don't have them, and to those that do. I'm always thinking about better, going from good to great. So it continues to drive me even today. Um, but one thing I know for sure, as we're looking for those things we want and those things we need, is that when we use our voices together, we're louder and we're better when we work collectively and we join our voices together. As someone said earlier yesterday in a meeting I was in, an advocacy meeting, said, we just have to continue, we've just got to do a better job of swimming in the same school. And I believe that. Because there are many needs across our MPS and ML communities, and the greater rare disease community. And there are many ways that we can contribute our voices. So if you're unsure about the place where you can best connect and make a difference as we move forward with this new plan for advocacy, I know that Stephanie and I will be able to help you, and Brooke as well will help you identify your best place where you're going to thrive as an advocate with the society. But again, what I know for sure is that together is how we're going to make a difference. There's a lot that we can accomplish, and I think the best way to do that is to divide and conquer. So, what we set up, what we talked about last month, was creating subcommittees that will help build and drive actions in 4 areas for the society and beyond as advocates. And first is a subgroup that'll focus on federal legislative advocacy. And Erin Laughlin has agreed to come in and help lead that group. Thank you, Erin. Um, State legislative policy, Brooke is going to lead that. And when I met with Brooke and Stephanie last month, I didn't realize what Brooke is actually doing, which she's leading in Alabama. I knew that Brooke was very involved with the RDAC in Alabama, but I didn't realize that she's professionally working in the policy area. So excited for you to take a leadership role in state policy with our state legislative action, Brooke. And then next, Stephanie told me when I joined the society that one of her drivers, one of her dreams was to expand youth and young adult advocacy. And I'm with her. When we went to the Hill back in October, I said to Erin, whose daughter Spencer was with us, I said, Spencer was one of the best voices in the room. But Spencer didn't have a lot to say. She's very young. But she was in the room. And as far as I'm concerned, she was one of the best advocates on the Hill. Um, and I believe that for our youth and our young adults. And so I'm really excited that Stephanie is driven by really elevating and expanding what we can do with our youth and young adult advocacy. So Savannah Landgraf has agreed to help us drive that advocacy, that subgroup. Savannah on? I don't think she's on. Savannah is 19 and really excited to get involved and to help drive here. So I'm excited too. And then Stephanie is going to drive our special advocacy initiatives group, which is more hands-on. Things like Rare Disease Day, the MPS Awareness Day, and some other special initiatives. Stephanie is going to drive that area, and I'm really appreciative of that. So what we're planning is for these subgroups to meet in alternate months. So this month we're meeting as a larger group, and the plan is to bring in speakers who can share a greater perspective with us as advocates and give us strategies, give us perspectives and strategies, things to think about as we're building our strategies and the tactics to get where we need to be. And then on the off months, on those alternate months, the subgroups come together and really decide how we want to drive, how we want to divide and conquer and share those advocate voices, in terms of federal, state, and youth and young adult advocacy and our policy efforts, how we're going to drive that. And we'll also host webinars and events that'll help us grow our advocacy skills. And I had it later in the agenda, but Amber, don't you think now's the time to go ahead and just do a quick, a quick, tidbit about our storytelling webinar, which is a great kickoff for advocacy.
Absolutely. Happy to jump in. For those who were not on the call last time, I am Amber Adams. I'm Communications Director at the Society. We are getting ready on Thursday to host our second episode of the storytelling series. This is a workshop style series where we are taking your story from identification all the way to the very end, where it's a polished piece that you can use for advocacy, fundraising, whatever purpose strikes a chord with you. If you missed the first episode, that's okay. It's available on our YouTube channel for you to check out if you'd like, but anybody is welcome to jump in at any time. The link to join that is on our social media channels, as well as if you're on our email list. A reminder email went out earlier today. So I highly encourage you guys to join us for the rest of the series. We're very excited, and we've had a lot of good feedback from folks who are participating and are particularly interested in advocacy. So I hope I'll see you there.
Yeah, thanks for that, Amber. I just feel like stories are essential. They are critical to our advocacy efforts. We can build our efforts on strong data, but it's the stories that help our audience remember that data and why it's important. So it is a 4-part series. Join us the next 3 Thursdays from 12 to 1. Is it 12 to 1 is 45 minutes, right?
It's 12 to 1.
12 to
We
1.
have it reserved for an hour, but it could take anywhere from half an hour to an hour. Just depends on how much participation we have.
Okay, sounds good. Hope you'll join us. And then finally, if you haven't signed up, haven't sent me a message about the subgroup that you want to be a part of, I hope you will. And of course, you can come to the broader meetings every other month and not participate in a subgroup. We want you, we want your voice at whatever level you can engage, but engagement, getting on a committee and really getting involved is that's when you're really going to take your advocacy to a new level. So thank you for being here tonight, and know that we need you. You're important. Your voices make a difference. I believe that. So now I see that Karen's on, and it is my privilege to introduce Karen Holzer, who's tonight's going to talk to us about the priorities, the perspectives, and the view from bio. So Karen is Senior Director of Patient Advocacy at the Biotechnology Innovation Organization, and it's a position that she's held since October of 2024. Previously, Karen was Senior Director of Policy and Regulatory Affairs at NORD from July 22nd until taking her new role at Bio. Karen's experience also includes serving as Senior Director of Public Health Data Analytics at Maximus and roles at the Pew Charitable Trust, where Karen advanced from officer to senior officer in health programs between 2015 and 2020. She's also served positions at the FDA and as a research associate at Cornell University, and then various internships in the pharmaceutical and veterinary fields. She holds a PhD in comparative biomedical sciences from Cornell University and a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine from the University of Veterinary Medicine, Hanover. I first met Karen during her time at NORD, and she was incredibly gracious in sharing her time with me, her knowledge, and her ideas anytime I had a question in my own advocacy journey, and also while working as an advocate in industry. And I'm thrilled that she was able to join us tonight to share legislative priorities, the view from bio. So thank you, Karen. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Sharon. And you all, thank you so much for being here and for lending your voice. I know firsthand how vitally important it is to hear those stories, to really understand what policy means, not in boardrooms, not on Capitol Hill, but in day-to-day life. So the work that you do is so incredibly important, and I'm just so thrilled to be here. One of the really exciting things that I wanted to share is, as you may have seen, that just this morning, we have a health package. For those that don't live in the DC bubble every day, it's basically legislation that will hopefully be part of a deal to fund a large part of the government for the next year because the current government funding will run out at the end of the month. And there are a number of great priorities that are included in this healthcare package. One that I, as a rare disease advocate, am most excited about is reauthorizing a really important program. And it's a mouthful, I will warn you. It's called the Pediatric Priority Review Voucher Program, or for short, PRV program. This program is really important because it creates vital incentives to develop rare disease drugs for children. We all know how challenging it can be to develop these products. We know how challenging it can be, in particular for small biotech companies, to raise the funding to bring these products to market. And so this PRV program is really important. In a nutshell, it rewards developing a product for a rare disease that affects children by allowing another product to be reviewed by the Food and Drug Administration a little bit faster. We know the program costs taxpayers no money whatsoever. We know that the program has been vastly important. We know that about 50, I think, at this point, different rare disease communities have received their first ever treatment thanks to the Pediatric Priority Review Voucher Program. And I'm happy to share some of the resources, some of the data and materials that have been put together by the rare disease community, if helpful. But so we're at a really exciting point. This program lapsed a year ago, and we've seen how much of an impact it has had to not have this program. And we are so close for the program to be reauthorized. We know how important the stories are, how important it is to understand what it means to have a treatment, but also to understand the unmet needs that I know coming from the rare disease community, oftentimes, even if you have a treatment, there's still a lot of need to further develop treatments. And the Rare Disease Pediatric Priority Voucher Program is really important for helping to incentivize that continued investment. The reauthorization is in the bill, which is really exciting, but the bill hasn't become a law yet. And if you remember your civics class, I have a little son who's going through this right now. So I'm reliving it from that perspective too. It's a long path from being a bill to being a law. And so continuing to hear these stories is probably more important than ever because we are so close, but we're not quite at the finish line yet. There are a couple of other big priorities that I can talk about. The way I think about our priorities at Bio, they fall into two big buckets. One is around ensuring timely access to the therapies that exist. And we know that there are lots of challenges with health insurance, with prior authorization, with step therapy, having to step through ineffective treatments to get to an effective treatment. So there's a lot there that can be done and needs to be done. And really exciting as part of the healthcare package, there are some legislations that would streamline some of these issues that are part of what's called the PBM package. But so there's some great legislation there to make it easier to access the treatments that have been prescribed and really cut out the middleman in a lot of ways. The other big area that I see at Bio is really ensuring that there's innovation ecosystem, that there are incentives like the PRV program, that there are effective pathways at the Food and Drug Administration, that there is the ecosystem to really support that innovation. And obviously, there are lots of concerns around some of the policies we've seen around most favored nation type pricing, etc., that would chip away at some of these incentives. But let me pause there. I know I threw a lot at you. Happy to answer any questions. And Sharon, happy to have a conversation in whatever way makes most sense.
Okay, do we have questions from the team? Steve.
Thank you. Uh, my concern is I agree with the priorities you articulated, Karen, but lately the FDA itself has become kind of a roadblock. They've been throwing up concerns that we haven't seen in the past, and it's frankly very concerning because every day of delay is a day of decline for many of our MPS patients.
Couldn't agree more. Coming from the rare disease community myself, I know um, that time is of the essence. I know that having regulatory predictability and strong regulatory pathways is really important, and we definitely do what we can to support and ensure the ecosystem. But again, I think that's where a lot of the stories come in. That's where your advocacy can really make a huge difference, and where we've seen advocacy making a huge difference. Really reinforcing that this is not abstract time, but this is actually um, function, and this is people's lives. This is kids' lives that are at stake.
What you were you referencing the health package in the House?
The health package that was released this morning, yes.
Okay. And do you know when they're going to vote on it?
Soon. In the next, our hope is that it will clear by the end of the week, both
Okay.
chambers. But nothing in DC is predictable these days. But in the next couple of days is the hope.
So if we are going to be contacting our legislators specifically about the PRV reauthorizations, do we need to address any of the other aspects in the healthcare package as well? Or
I think it is absolutely up to you. I think hearing about the specifics of the programs that are most important to you is really important. Obviously, for those who are a little bit more nerdy, the pediatric priority review voucher reauthorization is packaged with a couple of other bills, including some cancer bills that make pediatric trials for cancer easier, etc. They come as a package right now,
Mhm.
but really hearing about what is most important to you and your community is really important so that the PRV program doesn't get taken out of any bigger bills. Things can be unpackaged. And so really hearing about your priorities is the most important part.
Do we happen to know if there's anything else in that bill that we've advocated for previously? Terry, Sharon?
It, I think the push in that bill, and this is the Give Kids a Chance, Michaela
Yeah.
Nail, Give
Mm-hmm.
Kids a Chance.
Exactly.
It's, if you go online, Stephanie, it's
Mm-hmm.
called the pediatric cancer bill, but it really, when I look at it, it really embraces the larger rare disease community. It really does. And that incentive, that PR, to push it where we want to push it because we want to drive the incentives that can help develop new treatments for our kids. Where we need to push is the PRV.
Okay.
And we talked about it last month. My concern is that we need to get this going now. And we did. Amber did post
Mm-hmm.
yesterday on social media, pick up the phone, call now. Don't let politics get involved in in this bill. because of what happened on December 19th. We were in this meeting last month. We were talking about, um, you know, how you contact your legislator, how easy it is. It's 5 or 6 minutes of your time. And in the midst of discussing that, Amber jumps in and said, it's just been announced. She saw it on social media that actually it was blocked in the Senate. Um, what I've heard from other groups, they're using the word leverage. We are, don't let our kids be leveraged. I actually said, our kids these treatments are becoming bargaining chips. And these are our kids. These are kids' lives. I was actually a little more strident about it. But I I'm really focused on the fact that we need to unlock as many barriers as possible. And the PRV, when if we lose that totally, that's a barrier.
I just didn't know if there was any other reauthorizations rolled into it, like the Newborn Screening Saves Lives Act.
Yeah.
No.
It is not. So there's some telehealth bills
Okay.
and PBM reform bills. So there are a couple of
Okay.
other bills in there, but they're but they it's not of the newborn screening bills, unfortunately.
Okay. Thank
Mhm.
you.
Yeah. So, Karen, if you were giving us, if you were suggesting to us how to best make our voice heard, we don't have a lot of time. What's your suggestion for us as a community and moving forward in this short, what could be a week?
I think really telling the story, telling what having a treatment for rare disease means and why there is need for continued incentives, and really telling that in particular to leadership, to the people who will make the decisions. We are hoping, so right now it is in the package, and we're hoping that this package will move as a package. This package looks eerily similar to where we were at the end of 2024, and that all fell apart at the last minute. So we want to make sure that the people who have the power understand what's at stake if this falls apart again. So that includes senior leadership in the Senate, the bill co-sponsors. It's always really helpful to thank the people who have co-sponsored the bill on the Senate and on the House side, to thank them for sponsoring this really important piece of legislation and to reinforce why this piece of legislation is so important. Many of the co-sponsors have co-sponsored other parts of legislation too, and reinforcing why, if push comes to shove, why this piece of legislation is so vitally important. It's really important and it's really timely. So my piece of advice would be tell your story, call your elected officials, but in particular, really look at the people who are already supporting the bills. We have more than 300 co-sponsors on the House side and a very long list of co-sponsors on the Senate side. Thank them, express why this matters, and really um, make your voice heard, tell your story.
And last question for me. When in the bio coffee chat last month, I asked the question, are there people that we should particularly target who could be a barrier? Are there particular states or senators or policymakers that we should, if we have someone living in that state, that we should particularly make sure that we strategize getting those voices heard?
Um, You referenced what happened last time on the floor.
Mhm.
So we certainly heard very loudly from the elected official from Vermont about his concerns. We also know if you look at leadership, if you look at who are the senior senators, in particular on the Senate side, looking at states like New York, etc., um, that would be my recommendation.
Okay. All right. Okay. Any other questions for Karen? Steve?
Is Is there a bill number that is associated with this package, or is it just anonymous continuing resolution?
It is the appropriations bill. When I looked at the text this morning, it didn't have a bill number yet, but I can find that for you and I'll send it to Sharon to summarize it. I can also link, I'm happy to link to the whole packet. It's about 1,000 pages long, so it's some nice
Light
evening
reading.
reading, light reading, but I can get that for you.
Okay, Karen, that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
That'd be great. Okay, all right. If we don't have any other questions, Karen, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you
taking
for
your
what
time
you
out.
do.
Yeah, yeah.
Have
Thank
a great rest of your committee meeting, and thank you for having me.
you. Okay, thank you. All right,
Bye.
bye. Stephanie, you want to?
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yes, so we are going to be transitioning to a new topic, and I want to just introduce you guys to Terry Klein. If you don't know her already, she is our president and CEO of the National NPS Society. She plays a huge part in our advocacy efforts. One in particular, she's definitely known as the authority on, and that's newborn screening. And so I am going to pass this meeting off to her to give us some updates on that. Thanks, Terry.
Oh, thanks, Stephanie. It's so good to see all of you guys and see some wonderful faces. Happy New Year. You know, coming off the end of where Karen was, it makes me think about one thing. It makes me think about we seem to always be in these places at, especially now, where it's progress versus this unprecedented pressure in terms of how do we progress with the program that's doing well for our NPS disorders. At the same time, we're under this difficult pressure because the science is moving faster and faster, and we're seeing that, and we're looking at disease modifying therapies. We're looking at gene therapies that are they're targeting the brain for the first time for our disorders. These early intervention windows of newborn screening are so important, but they didn't even exist for us over a decade ago. You know, it was in 2016 we got MPS 1 across the finish line. I always think about newborn screening as it's more than a test. It's more than a test. It's actually an intervention. You know, it's one of the best health programs that exists in our country, and it's intervention, and it's the ability for us to be able to come in and make that critical have the state health labs and have that test done to make that critical moment appear to a family that their child may have something wrong. And at the same time, we may have something for them. And so instead of delaying that diagnosis, we're able to kind of come in and try to change the course of what that looks like. At least we can for MPS 1 across many of the states. And we're moving towards that with MPS 2. And we talk a lot about newborn screening at the National NPS Society. And it's because we don't have all of our screenings yet for our disorders. And so we don't rest on our laurels because we know what's in front of us are still 3 disorders that have a therapy that don't have newborn screening. And that's MPS 4A and MPS 6, Barrett-Tolomei, and MPS 7, SLY syndrome. And so our work isn't done, and it's not for the faint of heart. And so it becomes a high level priority for us at the society, even amongst the progress of science and then the pressure that we're feeling. As Karen is sharing with us, very important legislation that we're hoping is going to be able to be harnessed for our rare disease community, because these are really game-changing moments. And it feels a little heavy. I don't want to be the one to say that necessarily coming into 26, but I had to have another discussion at the beginning of the year about how does it feel right now? And it feels a little heavy. It feels heavy because we have therapies that are stalled, as we're hoping that they're going to be unlocking the stall, and we're going to see progress across those potential treatments with approvals. But the stall means life. Barriers equal lost lives for us. And we can't have those places. And we certainly have found a way to be able to put together a nomination for MPS 1 and MPS 2 that was looked at by the current, at that time, structure of ACHD and C to cross the finish line, because we had enough science-based evidence to do just that. And this is what we're looking at now for MPS 4, for MPS 6, and MPS 7. But they're not alone. And so at the federal level, I was going to try to share my screen if that's all right, Sharon, if I can do that. Would that be okay?
Yeah. Amber, can Terry share?
I'm going to add
Yeah.
her as a host right now.
Okay.
Let me know when you see this screen.
We can see it.
You can see it. It's not in presentation mode, is it? Let's see if you can see it now from the beginning.
We are still looking at the slideshow. You may have to unshare and reshare in presentation mode.
Isn't that terrible? It's a terrible thing. Let me keep it just here for now. I'm hoping that you guys can see this. Can you see this well enough?
Yep.
Yes.
So go back and forth. Okay. So this is the MPS 1 screen. And so this is where we know we have the states that are screening. Look at the progress that's been made. I want you to know that we're in pursuit of legislation for newborn screening here in South Dakota. And we're starting to work with Montana. And I don't have the outcomes, or Stephanie actually might know that for Montana, but I wanted you just to glance at the screen to see where we're at and recognize down here we're screening for Hawaii. We're not doing so for Alaska. I didn't put the screens up here for Guam, but we are screening in Guam, but we aren't in other areas of regions like our U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico.
Terry, I just
Yeah.
wanted to comment real quickly. Alaska will be adding MPS 1 and MPS 2 when they renew their contracts with the state lab in the lower 48.
Wonderful.
Yep.
This is good news to hear. I have been talking to an investor in the newborn screening health labs. I should not say that, just the screening health labs in Alaska for more investment there. So that's
Okay.
that screen. But let me now go to see if you guys can see the MPS 2. So here comes MPS 2. It's starting to emerge across the 48. I don't have the other regions of our Alaska, Hawaii, our Guam, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands here, the U.S. Virgin Islands. They're not screening yet in those areas, but it is starting to emerge. And there are RUSP alignment states here that we're not recognizing, that we're hoping that are going to come to bring on quickly. But the one thing that we have learned from the MPS 1 to 2 is that it is being picked up faster. And we also know that the state level advocacy is going to be crucial. And that piece is the piece that I'm hoping that Sharon will work with on our advocacy team to help build out more voices on the state level, because they are screening for MPS 1. And we have another door in which we can walk through because they are recognizing MPS 1. And so how can we get MPS 2 there? I expect that by the time we get to 2026 towards the end, that I'm hoping that we're going to see at least a light up of 50% more of these states that are brought on, and that we'll see something quite significant by the time we're in summer of 2027. That's a remarkable timeline compared to where we were with MPS 1. So the uptake is definitely there. The state level advocacy piece, the piece where our members who want to be advocates in the states that don't have the screening yet, to be able to present their story, to be able to meet with legislators, to be able to build out state level messaging is what's going to be crucial here. And I want us to be able to walk into 26 saying, this is what we're going to do. And this is how we're going to harness our voice at the state level to be able to bring this onto the docket. But I wanted to go somewhere else, because in the past week, we had something very unique happen at the state level in Virginia. And I know that this screen might get harder for you to read, but Sharon, I'll send these slides over to you so that you can share them with everyone else. But I want to talk about something that's really dynamic and that could be a game changer that's being picked up in Virginia. And it's House Bill 433 that just dropped last week on January 12th to amend our newborn screening evaluation of disorders for inclusion. What Virginia is taking a look at doing is they're looking at diseases that have valid assays on record that can screen appropriately for a condition that is life limiting, even if it hasn't gone through a nomination process before, number one, even number two, if it doesn't have an approved treatment yet. They're willing to take a look at disorders that are in the phase 3 of the clinical trial and adding them on to the nomination. And then number 3, they're looking at these conditions in which there are other interventions that might be beyond a disease modifying therapy that will bring benefit to that child if they have a solid assay. And there's a large quotient that's moving towards the child losing their life. And so if you look down in yellow, you see the addition of the HB 433 specifically directs the department to evaluate the Sanfilippo syndrome A, Morquio A, marital MABE, which is MPS 6, MPS 7 SLY, Batten type 2, CLN 2, Fabry Gaucher, our ASMD, and any other RUSP approved condition that's not yet screened in Virginia. This is such a bold piece of legislation that if this crosses the finish line for an approval, it is going to wake up many of our states in this country. What a progressive movement forward. And I am pleased beyond. This is the buzz. This HB 433 is a buzz because it's a bold statement. It's a bold statement. It says if they have demonstrated benefit, early intervention are in alignment with existing technologies, meaning they have the assay. They have a treatment that might be in phase 3 clinical trials or approved for a rare condition by a federal Food and Drug Administration, or have therapeutic guidelines, possibly not even the treatment itself, but guidelines across these disorders, and they have a valid assay that can run through a tier 1, tier 2, possibly even tier 3 structures for newborn screening at the health lab, that these conditions can all be considered. They're also going to roll back the clock, in any condition that didn't get approved, that had been presented, that does have a life-saving therapy, gets to be relooked at again across their calculations. This is state level advocacy at its best. At its best. I am not sure yet who the group is here in Virginia that was behind the HB 433. I couldn't drop into that in the past 5 to 6 days to see it and see who this is, but it has instantly rose to one of the biggest buzz moments right now for newborn screening. Everyone is paying attention to this because though they've listed some diseases in this slide, and they talked about the ones here at the bottom, they're talking about rolling back the clock to everything else that they've denied and go at this again, as long as their assays are solid and they have a way to be able to test. I'm going to stop sharing the screen for a minute because I just wanted to share with each of you guys just how incredibly important our stories and our voices are. We can never minimize how important one family's story is and who's going to listen to it. I know personally and professionally for the organization how arduous this can feel sometimes at times. It can feel as if we have maybe not the right way to go. But imagine if we didn't start in 2012 and put the nomination in front of the ACHDNC. What if we hadn't did that in 2012 to get an approval in 16 to be where we are today? What if we dragged our legs? Well, this is today. So this is today. This is 2012. This is 2012. And we have the ability to take a look at our other disorders. And what do we want to do to make that change happen so that we can be on the other side of this without it taking a decade? And how can we create positive legislation and positive conversations that will be game changers for what we want to do? I know I took us over the limit by 3 minutes here, but I wanted to show you where we're faring on the federal level for newborn screening. I want you to know that at the federal level that there is something called a recommended uniform screening panel. That exists. That is an existing entity of our country. We may have lost the mechanism in which to put that nomination through directly through a team to review, but it doesn't mean it will stop us from putting a nomination forward. And you can expect to see nominations go forward this year in a couple of conditions. We are emphasizing in this order MPS 7 and MPS 7 and MPS 3A, which we want to couple with 3B. And then we've got to go back and we've got to grab MPS 6. So it's another discussion in terms of how we get to 4A, because we want to get to 4A. There's some obstacles there, but we do have the screening. We have been able to pick up a baby through testing. We do have a newborn now for MPS 6, and MPS 6 is lethal. So that syndrome is critical. But the nomination has been written for 7, and the MPS 3A nomination is almost complete. So we have a way forward, and I'm going to stop there because I took us over by 5 minutes, and I apologize, Sharon and Stephanie, but there's some updates.
That was a great update. Quickly, questions for Terry.
Terry, so those applications that we are submitting them this year. That's our goal by the end of
Yeah,
2026.
yeah,
And is Matthew working with us in that space?
yes,
Okay.
yeah,
If we are to consider advocates in our state, at our state legislators or our state newborn screening committees, would that information be available for us to present to those committees? If
yes.
that, okay. Because I
And
know I've
I think
spoken
what you
here.
would do. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, and because I've spoken here in Delaware, and Dr. McKenzie and the Nemours team is more than happy to step in and try to help get MPS 4 added, probably as well as MPS 6. But as long as we have all of our documentation and stuff available, we can start presenting that to the committee. And maybe we
I
start
will
doing that possibly in states that don't require legislation. That's the easiest route.
I think what needs to happen for all of us, yes to all of that, Stephanie, is that I really think what will benefit all of us is an infrastructure in terms of how can we build out ambassadors at our state levels to start presenting these documents, and then recognizing there could be some senior chaperones that are tied to those documents. Maybe, Stephanie, you're one of those senior chaperones to help present to the state of Texas, or the state here, with the
Mhm.
families that are local there, so that we can help lift this up.
Okay.
But I feel like if we can land in a place that provides a movement forward, and I'm really thinking about a movement forward at a state level, and showing that we actually have the science and the data collected to be able to have these screenings done and to have intervention. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
I just wanted to make a note that Alex has her hand raised.
Thank you.
Hello,
That was
Alex.
sort of, hi, good to see you all. That was sort of what Stephanie was asking, sort of along the lines of what I'm asking. But if I'm to start somewhere tomorrow, just to like put my name in front of somebody, there's a committee that recommends within each state what is on that state's newborn screening panel,
Yeah.
typically.
So, each state is different. And so some states require legislation to be passed. So it looks like in Virginia, they require legislation. And so then you would have to have the advocates speak with the House and the Senate there in the state assembly. There are some states, so a lot of states have newborn screening advisory committees. And a lot of those meet at least twice a year. They meet virtually. Some of them meet up to 4 times a year. And you are always welcome to those as a member of the public, and you are allowed to place public comment. So if you wanted to make a statement that, you want the committee to consider XYZ, you can do it at that point in time. Or you can reach out to either the chair or the newborn screening program like coordinators, and seeing if it could be a possible agenda item. But each state is very different. And then once you get into, after you make that distinction, whether it needs to be written into legislation or if it can just be presented by the committee, um, then you can break it down into states that are definitely more progressive than others. And a lot of times, some of that is like a cultural thing. Some of the time, so like in the case of Nevada, Nevada is funding. It's written in their legislation for it to be added. They just don't have the funding for their state lab. And so you have to advocate for funding for the lab to be expanded for the equipment, for the technicians, for the training, for the program, what's it called? Surveillance, and being able to report out to families. And so a lot of times the Department of Public Health is also part of that discussion. Usually it is the secretary of the Department of Public Health for each state that signs off saying, yes, this is to be added to the newborn screening panel. So once it goes through an advisory committee or once it then that typically goes to the Department of Public Health. So that's also a potential advocacy opportunity is speaking with the secretary there. Um,
Can I interrupt for just a
That
second?
way,
I'm sorry, guys. I'm having problems with my broadband. Um, Sharon, how did you want us to break out? Because I'm thinking that I am I would love to have an in-depth conversation about this with the people who are interested in working in their state advocacy. So what's the plan on getting me those names? I can say drop your email in the chat, but I'm sure you have a better plan than that.
I have that list and you're going to get it.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, quickly, like tomorrow. Yeah, and
yeah,
anyone else?
well,
Yeah,
just as you can hear from Stephanie, there's a process, and every process is different. So trying to navigate each one is what's really going to be very efficient. And putting the tools together, so we have a toolkit going forward at state levels. I really love to see this movement of MPS just flooding our state capitals, and being able to get to the right people. You know, it might be like she said, like Stephanie said, a program coordinator here. It could be this person over here. Whatever that might be, finding those ways. It's going to be something that we do together. It
Yeah.
has to be done together and simultaneously.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's going to be absolutely, it's going to be customized to each state. And I like that idea of having an ambassador.
Mm-hmm.
I like that idea a lot. Terry's given us some strategies right off the bat here to get started. So I will get these lists to those of you who are subgroup chairs, and I will, I'm going to meet with you. I'm sure Stephanie's going to want to meet with you as she can, so that we can get this planning off the ground and get these committees going. We have a lot to do. One thing I want you to take out of this meeting tonight, if you can pick up the phone, call your legislator, advocate for this appropriations bill as soon as she gets the numbers to me so that you can adequately say, this is what I'm advocating for. I will get that to all of you on this call as soon as Karen gets that to me or as soon as I can get my hands on that number. But pick up the phone as soon as you can. Make a call. You can follow those same instructions that we talked about last month. It's easy. Let them know why this is important to you. And those numbers, it counts. When you call, when you email, it makes a difference. And particularly when you are a constituent of that legislator, they note that it's important. So thank you all for being here tonight. I'm thinking 45 minutes isn't enough. There's a lot to talk about. So, but thank you, Terry. Thank you for coming in tonight and sharing that with us. I'm really excited. I want to get on the state team and drive some newborn screening. And I've always been floating over here in the federal advocacy, so I may just have to split myself. So, thank you all for being here, and you'll be hearing from me very quickly. And just know that we're going to do these larger meetings every other month, and next month get involved in a sub team. Let me know where you want to be if you haven't done that already. And I already have several of you who've said, I want to be in both places. Connect me. So let me know, and I'll make sure that you're in those groups. Thanks, everyone.
Right.
Stephanie, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Right. Bye.